Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We've had tons of requests to take a closer look at local ordinances, and well, this one from Davao City really stood out. So we're talking about Davao City and their initiative to make movies more accessible for people with disabilities.
It's a really fascinating one.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. You actually sent this ordinance over to us, and on the surface, it sounds amazing, free movies.
Right.
But I'm sure, like a lot of our listeners, you're probably thinking, there's got to be some fine print here, right?
Yeah.
Who exactly qualifies for this? How does it all work? Are there any loopholes? Well, that's exactly why we're here today. We're going to break down ordinance, no 015523 piece by piece, so you get the full picture. No more wondering what's the catch.
Yeah, I think that's really important with any kind of ordinance or law. It's one thing to have these feel-good headlines, but actually getting into the nitty-gritty of how it works, especially the definitions and, how these things could potentially be misinterpreted or even misused, that's super important.
Absolutely. So let's start with the big picture. What's the core idea driving this ordinance?
Well, simply put, Davao City wants to give persons with disabilities, PWDs, free access to movies.
Okay.
It's all about making sure leisure activities are inclusive and recognizing that everybody deserves a chance to enjoy some entertainment.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Free movies. Who wouldn't be on board with that? But I have a feeling it's not as straightforward as just strolling into the cinema and saying, hey, I have a disability-free ticket, please.
You're exactly right. There's definitely more to it. The ordinance is carefully crafted to find that sweet spot between offering this awesome benefit while making sure it's both sustainable and, not open to abuse. And they've actually done a pretty clever thing by weaving this into a wider corporate social responsibility strategy for the cinemas that choose to participate.
So it's not just a handout. It's part of a bigger picture approach.
Precisely.
That's smart.
Um,
Okay, so let's get down to the specifics here.
yeah.
Who's actually eligible for these free movie perks?
Now, this is where things get interesting. The ordinance doesn't just stick to one rigid definition of disability. It builds on the foundation of the Magna Carta for disabled persons. But it also pulls in folks recognized under the National Integrated Cancer Control Act and the Rare Diseases Act.
So we're talking about a much broader scope than just physical disabilities then.
You got it. It covers a really diverse range of conditions, including some you might not automatically associate with the term disability. But just to be crystal clear, to actually get those free movies, you absolutely need a PWD ID card issued by the Davao City government. Think of it like your golden ticket.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's a way to make sure only those who are eligible can take advantage of the program and to prevent any misuse.
Right, exactly.
You mentioned different categories of impairment earlier. Could you break this down for us a little bit?
Absolutely. The ordinance recognizes three main types: physical, mental, and sensory. So physical impairments could include things like mobility issues, chronic illnesses, or any limitations to a person's physical functions. Mental impairments encompass things that impact cognitive function, emotional well-being, or psychological processes. And then you've got sensory impairments, which are all about difficulties with vision, hearing, or any of the other senses.
Wow. It sounds like they've really covered their bases in defining who qualifies. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach to disability, which is really great to see.
I agree. It acknowledges just how diverse the experiences are within the PWD community. But even with this broad approach, there are some ground rules when it comes to the free movie program. It's kind of like getting a backstage pass, but with some terms and conditions attached.
I spill it. What are the catches? Tell me it's not just one free movie for life and you can see anything you want.
Uh-huh. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, it's not quite that limitless. The free movie benefit is specifically for regular screening. So you can't use it for those fancy 3D or 4D experiences or special events or premium theaters.
Okay, so it's focused on standard movie screenings, which is still pretty awesome if you ask me.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone has access. And there is a limit to how often you can use this benefit: one free movie per week, specifically on Mondays. Though the ordinance does give individual cinemas the option to offer additional days if they want.
Oh, okay, so there's a little bit of flexibility built in there. That's good. But what about those blockbuster films everyone's dying to see? Can you just waltz in on opening weekend and catch the latest superhero flick for free?
Not quite. For those big blockbuster releases, you have to wait until the second week. It seems like they're trying to manage that initial rush and make sure there's space for everyone.
That's understandable. It wouldn't be fair for PWDs to have an advantage over everyone else who's paying full price during those peak times.
Exactly. Now remember that PWD ID card we talked about? You absolutely need to have that to get in. No ID, no free movie. And there's one more crucial piece. You need A movie pass booklet issued by the Persons with Disabilities Affairs Office, the PDAO.
Wait a second. A whole separate booklet? What's the deal with that?
Think of it like a frequent flyer program, but for movies. This booklet keeps track of the dates and the number of movies you've watched using your free pass. So no sneaking in extra screenings. They've got a system.
Wow, they really have thought of everything.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got your ID, your booklet, you're all set to enjoy a free movie. What should you expect when you actually get to the cinema?
Well, participating cinemas are required to reserve at least 5% of their seating capacity just for PWDs.
Hold on, dedicated seats just for PWDs.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful message about inclusivity.
For sure. And it's not just about the seats themselves. The ordinance actually requires cinemas to put up clear posters explaining all the details of the free movie program. Everyone should be aware of it, not just the PWD community.
Transparency is key. But how do we know that cinemas are actually following through with all of this?
Well, there's a formal agreement in place between the city and the cinemas to make sure everyone's on the same page. And on top of that, cinemas have to submit monthly monitoring sheets to show they're actually complying. It's all about transparency and accountability.
Okay, so they're definitely keeping tabs on everything. It seems like they've built in some really good checks and balances to keep the program running smoothly.
They definitely have. But of course, with any program like this, there's always the question of what happens when someone tries to bend the rules a little.
Right, because let's face it, there are always going to be people who try to take advantage. So what happens if someone tries to use a fake PWD ID or find some other way to abuse the system?
Well, that's where the ordinance gets a little more serious. They have a multi-layered approach to dealing with violations, and it all starts with penalties for fraudulent use of the free movie privilege. And welcome back to our deep dive into Davao City's ordinance that provides free movie access to PWDs.
Yes, welcome back, everyone.
We've been looking at who qualifies, how the program actually works. And now it's time to tackle that question that's probably on everyone's mind. What happens when someone tries to game the system?
Right. Like we were saying earlier, they've been really thorough in setting out all the rules, but rules are only as good as the enforcement behind them,
Right.
right?
And you got it, them. Davao City actually has a pretty multifaceted approach to handling violations. Like we touched on earlier, there are those escalating fines for anyone who tries to use the free movie benefit fraudulently.
Yeah. You mentioned it starts at 2,000 pesos for a first offense, and it goes up from there. But I have a feeling it's not just about hitting people's wallets, is it?
Nope, there's more to it than that. The ordinance actually gives cinema operators the power to take action. If they catch someone trying to bend the rules, they can report those individuals to the nearest police station.
Wow. So the cinemas themselves are actively involved in protecting the integrity of the program. It's not just on the city government to police it.
Exactly, it's a real team effort. And to make things official, they use something called an ordinance violation receipt, or a citation ticket for short, for anyone caught breaking the rules.
So like a parking ticket,
Yeah.
but for trying to sneak into a free movie.
Exactly. The citation has the violator's name, their address details of what rule they broke, and a very important reference to something we hinted at earlier, the no contest provision.
Ah, yes, the no contest provision. Let's talk about that. It sounds like it gives people a way to avoid a whole legal mess if they get caught violating the rules.
You got it. So if someone gets a citation and they don't want to fight it in court, they can choose to just pay the specified fine directly to the city treasurer's office. No lawyers, no court appearances, no drawn-out legal proceedings.
So it sounds pretty simple and efficient. What happens to the case once the fine's been paid?
It's considered closed. They admit to the violation, they pay the penalty, and that's that.
Just like that. Almost sounds too good to be true.
Well, there is a catch, and it's a big one.
I knew there had to be. Okay, what is it?
The no contest provision is a one-time deal. You only get one shot at this. If you're caught violating the ordinance again after taking this route, you don't get that same option. The city will go ahead with legal action, and you have to face the full consequences.
So it's like a get-out-of-jail-free card, but you can only use it once.
Exactly. It's a chance to fix a mistake without going through the whole legal rigmarole. But it's definitely not a loophole you can exploit over and over again. Think of it like a second chance, but with a very clear message that continued violations will have serious consequences.
I'm really impressed with how carefully they've designed this ordinance. They've clearly thought about every angle and all the potential ways it could be misused.
They have. And underlying all of this is a real dedication to transparency and accountability. The city legal office and the city treasurer's office are the ones responsible for setting up all the procedures for the no contest provision. And they have to keep detailed records of everything.
So it's not just a free-for-all. There's a whole system in place to keep track of violations and make sure this provision isn't being abused.
Exactly. That level of rigor is really important for maintaining the integrity of the entire program.
This whole no contest provisions is a fascinating example of how a legal framework can deal with those real-world complexities. It acknowledges that people make mistakes, but it also doesn't shy away from the importance of accountability. It's a great balance between fairness and deterrence.
I agree. It's a very nuanced approach. And it highlights the fact that this ordinance is about so much more than just free movies.
Absolutely. It goes much deeper than that. It's about promoting social inclusion and recognizing the rights of PWDs to fully participate in every part of community life.
It's about challenging our assumptions about what accessibility really means. It's not just about physical access like ramps and elevators. It's about creating an environment where everyone, regardless of their abilities, feels genuinely welcome and valued.
I love that you brought up that sense of belonging. It's so crucial for building a truly inclusive society. It's about breaking down barriers, physical and social, so everyone can share experiences and feel like they're part of something bigger.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This ordinance seems to be doing that on multiple levels. But it also makes you wonder, could this model work in other areas? What about museums, concerts, sporting events? The possibilities are endless.
See, this is what I love about these deep dives. We start with one specific thing, but it opens up all these bigger questions and gets us thinking about what we could achieve.
It's all about sparking a conversation and challenging our own assumptions. If we can make free movie access a reality for PWDs, what else can we do? Where else can we apply this kind of inclusive thinking?
All right, so we're back for our final segment on Davao City's ordinance for free movie access for PWDs. We've really gone through the nuts and bolts, the qualifications, the rules, even what happens if someone tries to break those rules. But you know me, I always like to dig a little deeper and understand the why behind it all.
That's a great point. The ordinance itself is fascinating. But what's really inspiring is the motivation behind it. It's not about just handing out free movie tickets. It's about making a statement about the value and the inclusion of PWDs in the community. It's like saying, you deserve to enjoy the same leisure activities as everyone else.
Yeah, it's like saying, hey, we see you, we value you, and we want you to be a part of everything we do. I imagine for someone who faces barriers in other areas of their life, just knowing they have that same access to entertainment could be a really powerful thing.
Absolutely. It's a step toward changing how we all think about accessibility. It's not an afterthought, not a box to check off a list. It's woven into the very fabric of how they function as a community.
And this ordinance is a real concrete example of that shift in action. It's not just talk. It's them actually taking steps to make inclusion a reality. Yeah. But it's about more than just physical access, right?
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that's truly welcoming and inclusive, where PWDs feel genuinely comfortable and valued. It's not enough to just make a space physically accessible. You have to actually make people feel like they belong.
I love that you brought up that sense of belonging. It's so important for building a truly inclusive society. It's about breaking down those barriers, both the physical and the social, so everyone can share in those experiences and feel like they're a part of something bigger.
I couldn't have said it better myself. This ordinance seems to be accomplishing that on several levels, but it also makes you wonder, could this kind of model work in other areas too? What about museums, concerts, sporting events? Imagine the possibilities.
Now you're talking. This is what I love about these deep dives. We start with one specific topic, but it opens up all these broader questions and gets us all thinking about what we could achieve.
It's about sparking a conversation, challenging those assumptions we might have. If we can make free movie access a reality for PWDs, what else can we do? Where else can we apply this kind of inclusive thinking?
And that's the challenge we're leaving you with today. Think about what inclusivity really means in your own life. What small steps can you take to create a more welcoming and accessible environment for everyone?
Because at the end of the day, building a truly inclusive society is a team effort. It takes empathy, awareness, and a willingness to step outside of our own perspectives.
Well, we've explored the ins and outs of this ordinance, uncovered those hidden gems, and hopefully sparked some inspiration for you to carry forward. So keep asking those what-if questions. Keep pushing for a world where everyone feels welcome, valued, and empowered to participate in everything life has to offer. That's what these deep dives are all about. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.